the body. This will be for the inner part. And I have one ear. And I've cast it on, and we're about to make another ear. And once we get done with this ear, we'll have 2 arms to make. And we'll actually, for the arms, we'll need waist yarn, which is why I have that there. And so you definitely don't want your yarn to get stuck. You want to make sure it's nice and loose so that your machine doesn't jam, or you don't drop a stitch or get a tuck stitch or anything like that. So you want to make sure, just pull your yarn, make sure it's flowing freely. If you stick with me, I'll show you what my machine does. I'm not sure if it's just my machine or if it's all the small Addies, because I'm not sure if you can see the big centro, but this right here is my big centro and the 48 needle, and it doesn't do what I'm going to show you with this one when we start on the next piece, but this one has done it from the beginning, and I'm not sure if that's normal for all small Addies or if it's just this machine. I don't know. I've seen a couple other people say something about it, but I don't know for sure, but it'll be after this piece. I didn't want to cast on because I didn't want you to have to watch that, but I mean, it's reality, so that's why the next piece I am going to just cast on so that you can actually see what it does. Every time you see me stopping, it's because I'm pulling yarn. So we only have 5 more rows to go. Okay. This is marked right here. This is just painter's tape, or yeah, I think it's painter's tape. It tells me that it's right here in this partition. It tells me that the needle after that is my last needle. And that way I don't have to look for numbers or colors. I just see the tape and I know. So see, I see the tape, so I know that that's my last one. And because we're going to cast off, and then I'm going to need yarn to sew on my ear, I normally just grab it at the very end, right at the end of the yarn feeder, and I just get a strand from the tip of my finger to my shoulder, and that should be plenty. So my last needle, and then I just go a few. Some people go all the way, but I don't like to drop stitches because I don't like fixing them, so I'd rather just take my time like this. So this was the last needle. So I start with the very next one, which would be number 1. And I just pick up the little strand that's on the outside out here. I just pick that up. And the first 3 I do individually because it's pretty tight. And then after that, I can pick up several at a time. And what I'm doing right here is called casting off. Casting off. And when you first start learning how to cast off, you want to make sure that you count so that you get the right number of stitches off the machine, because if you miss one, you're going to have drop stitches and your work's going to unravel. And the reason that I like to do them, I don't like going around all the time. I don't know if you can see my very last stitch is lifting out of there. So I'm going to hold it so it doesn't come out. All right, so we just cast it off. And that is our ear. And so now we're going to make 2 arms. And so we're going to cast on. And the way we cast on, my little marking tells me that that's the last needle. So I don't want to start with the last needle. I want to start with the first one. So I get enough yarn where the tip just touches the surface, my table surface. I wrap around it like that. So that's the first needle. So I was in front of the first needle. Let's do that again. So it's first needle, yarn touches the surface. I'm in front of the first needle. Then I go behind the next one, and then in front, behind, and front, behind, and front, behind, and front, behind, and front, behind. And we do that until we get to the last needle. And you should be behind the last needle. If you're not behind the last needle, do it again because you've missed somewhere. Now the first needle, so this is my last needle, I'm behind it, so I'm good. I make sure that it's threaded. It's through the yarn guide on the front and on the back. And then the front, the first needle, it's wanting to drop that yarn. I don't know if you can see that the yarn is like right here instead of down there. So I just make sure that the yarn is all the way down. Now I'm good to start. So I'm going to set my row counter. And actually, for my arms, I need waist yarn. So I could put my waist yarn at the end, but because I'm not going to do this project right now and the waist yarn comes off quite easily on the end, I am going to take this off. And all I do is remove it like that, and then I just go around twice. Sometimes your yarn splits and you have to help it. So basically, we're going to do the same exact thing with the waist yarn. All right, guys, that just means you get a little bit more practice, right? So, and my machine doesn't really like this yarn that much, but so I go to my last needle, so I'm going to go to my first needle. Got my yarn. It's going to touch the surface. I'm going to wrap around the front of the first needle like this, like so. It's in the front. I'm going to go behind the next one, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind. And I'm going to keep going in front and behind. And here's my last needle. I should be behind it, and I am. Putting my yarn through the yarn guide. Make sure. Checking on my first needle, and the yarn has come up. I want it to be there. Make sure it's not going to get loose. And I'm going to knit a few rows with this. And if you can see, it doesn't want to move, and it's because the yarn is caught. And it does it with every single kind of yarn that I use. And this is what I wanted to show you. I'm not sure if everybody experiences this. And I could just power through it, but I don't want to damage my machine. And then you get split yarn. And so in this case, because it's my waist yarn, it wouldn't matter. But if it's my project, I don't want split yarn in my project. So yeah, we just go around, and it just does it. And so normally for like the first 2 or so rows, I just do this. All I'm doing is basically taking the yarn that's supposed to go over the needle and just helping it get over. And like this one right here is just, it's caught. It's caught good because there we go. I think I got it. And once I get to a certain point, then it goes fine. But I keep this handy, so if it does it, I can just help it along. And so with this, I'm just going to, how did my yarn get into, y'all, how does that even happen? All right there. Okay. Just put that yarn right there. So, and with this, I'm going to do several rows. You can do whatever amount of rows feels comfortable to you. I just do between 5 and 10. It just varies. Like, see this one caught right here, which is odd for it to catch so late. But maybe because it had to pull when it got caught, maybe that's what it's doing. And so I'm just showing you, not every time it's like this, but this does happen. It's just part of it. And if you have not had it happen to you, then you're very lucky. So yeah, I'm not sure if just that yarn getting stuck there for that split second is what caused this, but this normally does not happen to me after like the first few rows, because this right now is a little bit ridiculous. So hopefully once I get past this needle for the new round, it will ease up. And it doesn't appear to be, because it's so tight. I'm going to go ahead and go a whole nother round because I don't want to have to do this with the yarn I'm fixing to put in there. So, I mean, I know that the machine doesn't like this yarn. So here we were supposed to just be going right along, but here we are. But it happens. I don't understand why it's doing this to me. Like, it's really tight, and this yarn is splitting every which way. And it's not getting any better. You see that I can't even turn it. So it's definitely not where the yarn got stuck, because it would not last all this time. And so I think I'm gonna stop it with this, because here I am to the last needle again. And it is still too tight. I mean, I know that it doesn't like the yarn, but I've worked with it before. All right, so this is not working for me, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this yarn. And normally we would just go around twice and it'll drop off. But you can see how my needles are not, my machine's not wanting to go. So I'm going to try to help it along. And I don't want to force it, because I don't want to break my needles. And so here I'm just pulling on the fabric down, trying to just get the yarn to come over the needle, except that it's so tight that it just doesn't want to do it. All right, so we helped that, and now the rest of it should go. All right, y'all, I don't know how long that took, but I'm going to go ahead and get another yarn for us to cast on with, because I don't want to use that one again and have the same problem. I don't even know where I have my waste yarn right now. So I'm going to use good yarn as waste yarn. And we go around. Yeah, so the machine's okay. So we're going to go ahead and cast on front and back, front and back, front and back, front, back, back, front, back, front, back, front, back. So we're going to try this again. Make sure it's the first needle, that the yarn is there. You hear that. But guess what? It took it with no problems. I didn't have to stop and get anything out. The last one, I'm going to stop right there. I don't need to leave a long tail, because all I need to do is last needle. I want to make sure it catches. And then we're going to start with, where's my yarn? Oops, I'm sorry. an ear, right? And I hope I have enough to make an ear. Well, 2 ears actually. So right, that was my last needle. I took that out. I'm going to go ahead and again, I let it touch the surface, put it around the first needle, make sure it's through the yarn guide, close my yarn guide. I'm going to set my counter and I am going to do, I'm working on an arm, 20. Always push down my first one because for some reason it likes to pop up all the time. So that was 1. Getting my yarn. And normally the first couple of rows, and this is from my waist yarn to my yarn, I just like tying a little knot right here just so that it doesn't come undone. What was I going to say? Normally when you start doing your whatever color you're working on, your project, normally the first like 2 rows, 2 or 3 rows, you want to go slow to make sure that everything, all the needles are catching the way they're supposed to. But then after that, you can just crank it, kind of like what we did on the ear. Yeah, I'm running low on the yarn, so I really am hoping, and I got knots, well not knots, but you see this little mess I got going on right here. And I run the yarn like this through my hand, either like this or like this, just so it's just applying just a slight bit of tension, if you even want to call it that. But that way, if there's any knots coming up or any bunching up or anything like that, it's stopped by my hand or my fingers so that it doesn't get to the machine. All right, so this is my last, needle, because I'm going to have to sew on this arm. I go again from my fingertips to my shoulder, and that might be a little too much, but that's just how I do it because I don't like running out of yarn. And actually, I should have left more than that, probably a little bit more, because I got to match a stitch the arms. But it should be enough because it's a little. And what we're doing right now is casting off. And again, the first, oops, that way I just picked up 2 stitches. I'm just making all the mistakes with y'all today. So I just want the 1 stitch. And why am I so careful? Because if I drop that 1 stitch, that whole row all the way down is going to come undone. But this is good so that you guys see that mistakes are made, things happen, you know. Let's see it there again, trying to pick up 2. All right, so that's one arm with waist yarn. That's not part of the project, but the waist yarn is there because we are going to stitch this in closed in a little bit. All right, so one arm down, another one to go, and I am going to, where's the rest of this yarn? Okay, yeah, I might have enough. I was going to weigh it, but I think I have enough. I'm hoping I have enough. So again, we're going to start with the waist yarn. Let it touch the surface in front of the first needle, behind and front, all the way till we get to the last needle. And remember, the last needle we're supposed to be behind. So last needle, we're behind it, making sure it catches in the, where I put it through the yarn guide. My first one, can you see that? It popped off. So I want to make sure it's on there and put it back down. And then I'm just going to go see this one splitting again. You can also just apply a little bit of pressure, just slight, nothing big, just to help that through. Obviously, when I'm doing this, I'm not holding my yarn, so there's not any tension. So if it was my project, I wouldn't do this because then my stitches would be uneven. But because this is just waist yarn and the tension doesn't really matter, I can do that. And then again, I'm just going to do a few rows. Last needle. I don't need it long because all we're going to do, make sure that the last needle catches. Drop it in there. My project yarn, my first needle. I'm going to make sure that it touches the bottom. Put it through the yarn guide. Close my yarn guide. Set my counter. And then we're doing another 20 rows. And after I do like 2 or 3 rows, I'll go ahead and tie these together. Just a little knots because obviously I have to take those apart. All right. So that's 3 rounds completed. All right. And so that was the end of the 20th. And so I'm going to go ahead again from my fingertips all the way to my shoulder. I'm going to cut it. This is, no, let me put it in my hand. This is how much yarn we had left. So we almost didn't make it, but we made it. And then we're going to cast off again. I'm going to take that last needle. As you can see, it hasn't knitted it through. So I'm going to go ahead make sure it goes in. And then we start with the very next one. The first 3, I do one at a time. If you're new to this, you want to count them so that you don't drop any, or that you know if you've dropped any before you try to assemble your project. Because if you assemble your project, you're gonna put some time into it, and then you're gonna realize you have drop stitches, which you should be able to realize anyway, because when we take our fabric off of the machine, we want to go ahead and stretch it all out in all the different directions, just to make sure that the stitches are where they're supposed to be. And I'll show you. I'm not sure if I showed you with the last one, but and I could put the waste yarn when we started, you know. I could have put the waste yarn on the top, but because it's going to go in a bag, so I'm going to work on it later, it can come undone. And so I don't want to mess with it. So this is what it looks like. So just, but you want to stretch it that way, and you want to stretch it that way. And you see, it got bigger. Just so all the stitches kind of fall into place, do what they're going to do. And so I'll show you, leave that one there, and here's the one that we did not stretch. Big difference. All right, so this is the one bunny. So what I've been doing is I've been putting them in a little Ziploc bag, because I'm making the fabric for several different bunnies, which I'm going to assemble later. So there's that one. It's just in a bag, just kind of to hold all the pieces together, because I've got that one, I've got that one, I've got that one, and I've got that one. And we're fixing to do another one. Now, I have not put this yarn through my machine, so I'm not really sure. This is 78% acrylic and 22% wool. I'm not sure how it's going to like it. So I was thinking, I don't know if I wanted to do that with you guys, because I don't know if it's going to act up or what it's going to do. But I'm going to, and I'm trying to find the center to pull from the center, but I'm not finding it. So that's what I'm, all right, so I just pulled all that out. Let's see what we got. I'm going to make it or start it, and if I don't like it, or if the machine doesn't like it, then we'll just readjust, right? And so I'm starting with the body, so that there's my tape, so there's my last needle, there's my first needle, putting it down so it touches the surface. We're going to cast on again, in front, up, behind, in front, behind. And so every time you start my last needle, I need to be behind, and I am putting it through the yarn guide, making sure that my first needle, my yarn is still on there. I'm good to go. I want to make, this is for the body, so I want 100 rows. So here we go. Let's see how the machine does with it. And of course, this right here doesn't have anything to do with the yarn. This is just what my machine does. And I definitely do not want it to split. That one right there was split. Seems to be going pretty good though, so we might have to do this for row 2 and then we should be done. I'm pulling down my yarn on my first needle. Now we started on row 2, helping it along. So it took that one, but it still split it. So I want to make sure it's not splitting it, because if it splits it, then that's just going to mess up my project. All right, we're halfway done with round 2, and it's still catching on some. So we started round 3. And remember, we want to start off slow. And so it appears to be doing good with this yarn. I'm sorry, I was talking while I was cranking that. It appears to be doing good with this yarn. So we're going to go ahead and crank out 100 rows. Okay, so we are without trying not to tangle the yarn. You can see how many fuzzies that yarn's putting out. And when you see it starts doing this, so it's normally for me, it's like normally like 60, 65 rows. You want to just bring this up carefully so you don't pop out any stitches, because if it keeps going down, popping up, you're going to most likely pop out a stitch and you're going to have drop stitches. So I just put it like this. There's nothing touching the bottom now, and I should be good. And it didn't stay up, so I'm just going to pull it up again. Last row, tape, last needle, and let's see, with that one I will have to sew, because I have to sew the leg part. So I'm going to leave myself from the tip of my fingers to the shoulder, cutting it, looking for my needle. And you see that has not gone down completely, so I have to make sure that does once I thread this. So I grab my yarn, I make sure it's under, right there, and it's gone in, and then we cast off. You guys are probably experts at casting on and off now. I've done it several times. So the first 3 I do one by one, and then I can do more at a time. And so the color change came out nicely. Looks like I did it, but you saw that I didn't. It's just a yarn that we're using. And so I'm stretching it. And there we go. That's the body. And then we're going to do the ears. And so mark last first. Come up, make sure it touches the surface, go around the first, in front of, then behind, in front, behind, all the way around, just like we've been doing. And last one, we're behind it, so we're good. We've just cast it on. I always make sure this first one is in there good. Set my counter. And we're working on ears, so we're going to crank out 35. But remember, the first couple of rows, you want to go nice and slow, make sure everything is catching. Of course, this machine, I have to help it along. So I'll be doing this for like a row or 2. Pulling the first one down. So starting a project on this machine initially is not the best, just because I have to do that for the first couple of rows. And so every time I start a tube, I got to do this. But it's still faster than crocheting or knitting. Well, I don't know how to knit, but it's definitely faster than crocheting, even with it taking this amount of time. And it looks like that was the end of row 2, and it looks like it's going to do good. I may still need it, I think, maybe on occasions. Definitely don't want to split the yarn. So I'll take this row nice and easy. That was row 3, and now I should be good. last row, last needle. So this is an ear, so I'm going to go again from the tip of my fingers to the shoulder, and that may be a little bit more than what I need to sew on the ears, but I'd rather have more than not enough. Last one, I'm going to make sure it takes the yarn, and then doing it again. Remember, we do the first 3 individually, and then we can do more at a time. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't split your yarn. Or grab any more. I have the light here so that y'all can see good, and it's kind of blinding me a bit. All right, so an ear. Now we make another ear. And basically, we do the same process again. Touches the bottom, wrap around the first, behind the next. Last one, I'm behind it. Go through the yarn feeder. Make sure my first one is down. Set my counter. And go slow, and I know I'm going to have to help it. And because I have to do this every time I start a row, I have done where I would make, so like what we just did, the ear was 35, so I would do the 35, leave like put a marker there, and then leave like about an 8 or 10 inch, I mean not inch, an 8 or 10 row difference in the middle, and then start my next tube of 35, and then do it like that, however many rows I need. But cutting those and having to then pick up the ends and all that is, to me, it's just not worth it. I'd rather do this, and it delays me for a couple of minutes than having the wasted yarn and having to do all the picking up of the stitches and all that. So it sounded good, and I have done it like 2 or 3 times, and just thinking that I may get used to it and it may be better than dealing with this, but I haven't found that to be the case yet. So I'd rather do this, even though I don't like doing this. I'd rather do this and do the other. And so I'm on row 2 now. You see I'm taking it nice and slow because I want to make sure that one needed help. So just work with the machine. When the machine tells me it's good to go and doesn't need my help anymore, then I go. And so it looks like it's ready now. So we're going to go ahead and do 35. We're on 30. We got 5 more to go. You can tell I slowed down some because my arm gets tired. Last row. Last needle. And this is an ear, so I'm going to leave from fingertip to shoulder. Make sure the last one catches. And then, what do we do, guys? What are we doing? We're going to cast off. So that's the last one. So I begin with the next one. Now I can do more. And so there's an ear. So it looks different than this ear, but that's okay because this little bunny will be unique. Because it'll just be however the stripes come out on it. Alright, so that's a body, 2 ears, and then we need the 2 arms. The arms need the waist yarn. This is the waist yarn that we used a little bit ago that the machine didn't like. But you want contrasting waist yarn, and so this is not that much of a contrast. So I need a better contrast than that white. So I am going to use I'm going to use this yarn right here. I really don't want to because this is good yarn. But I don't want to look for my waist yarn right now. So with the waist yarn, we cast on the same exact way. Last one. We want to be behind it. Go through the yarn guide. Make sure my first one is down. I'm going to go ahead and set my my counter. And I'm going to go ahead. Normally I do, what did I tell y'all? Between like 5 and 10 or 7 and 10. I'm only going to do 5 with this one just because I don't want to like waste my yarn, which will be fine because I can reuse and reuse and reuse this yarn, so it's not like technically going to waste. But and as we need to help it again, and because it's not my project, I can just do that, and it's quicker than doing them. I'm going to pull my yarn on my first needle. And okay, so all right, so my last one, I don't need to keep a lot out because I just need to tie my project yarn onto it. So make sure that the last needle catches. I'm not going to keep going because I need to put my yarn in here. And if I keep going, this needle will be over here and I might forget to make it catch. So I'm going to go ahead, touch the surface. This is my first needle. So I don't want to go around it because we've already cast it on, but I do want to make sure that it's in the yarn feeder all the way. I'm going to hold my waist yarn. I'm going to go ahead and set my counter. I didn't really need the counter for the waist yarn. I'm setting my counter back to 0. I'm going to just tug on this. Make sure it's under these. Tug on that, and I'm going to do a row 2, and then we'll come back and tie that. My first needle, always make sure that goes back down because it just tends to do that. Sometimes the second one will do it, but then we're good. And it only does it for like the first couple of rounds. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and tie this. Remember, I just want one knot because I'm going to have to undo that, but I don't want for my waist yarn to come apart from my actual project. And so we're doing the arms, so we're doing 20. You see this bunched up right here? That means that it's split yarn. So I'm looking. And I don't see it, so we might be good. But I was going to see if it was split and it's on the waist yarn, then that's not a problem because it doesn't matter. It was split on here. I was going to see how bad it was, because if it was terribly bad, then I would just start over. But it's fine. Last round. Last needle's coming up. Last needle. And this is an arm, so I'm going to have to sew. So again, from the fingers to the shoulder. If you want to do less than that, I do it a couple of times, and then you can see where you're at. And you may want to do less at that point, but I would go with more until you figure out how much you need. And I guess I've just always done it that way, so that's just how I leave it. And if I waste some yarn, that's fine, because my little scraps of yarn I keep to stuff things with anyway, so it doesn't go to waste. It will still get used. All right, so that arm is complete, and then we go on to make another arm. So again, we go with first needle, touch surface, go around the front of the first needle, back, front, till we get to the last one. And then we make sure we are behind it. Last one, we're behind it. Make sure it goes through the yarn guard. Make sure this one is down. You've watched it pop up every time. I'm not going to set my counter this time because it's not necessary, and I'm going to help my machine along, and we are going to pull this down because the first one is popping out. We're going to do like 5. That might have been more than 5, but that's okay. Last needle, make sure it catches. our yarn surface. I'm gonna yarn guard, close my yarn guard, front of that first needle. I'm gonna hold, I'm gonna set my counter. And so we take it slow. I'm gonna go like 2 or 3 rounds, and then I'm gonna tie these ends together. I'm coming up on the first one, so I'm gonna go ahead and push it down. And you may not have to do that on your machine, but I have to do it on mine. And you've seen I've had to do it with every tube we've done. That one went down pretty good. So we should be good now. Oops. Make sure you don't catch your ends in the needles. And we're doing 20. And this will be the last piece for this bunny, and we'll bag it up, and then we'll probably start on another one. Last round. My last needle's coming up. Last needle, again, from the tip of the fingers to the shoulder. And then I'm gonna thread this. Take it out of the yarn guide. Make sure my last needle, which is here, it's not caught it completely. Goes all the way down. Start with the next one. And 1, 2, and 3. And now I can do a few more at a time. And remember to not split your yarn. And if you grab way too many, it could come off your needle, and then you're going to have drop stitches if you can't pick those back up. So just take your time. There's no rush. Just enjoy it. Because unless you're somebody who loves to fix drop stitches, this is a lot more enjoyable. I do not like fixing drop stitches. So I rather take my time and just get it right. And so my waist yarn is the blue, so that's going to come off, but you see my arms are going to match. So the only thing that's not going to match completely is the 2 ears, but I think that's going to make him look even cuter. And so the bunny takes 3 ounces to make, I'm pretty sure. Let me weigh it real quick, because it's a different yarn, so it may be a little bit different. The other one's been between 3 and like 3.2. So I'm going to weigh it again, guys, because it's showing me that it's only like 2 ounces, which seems crazy. All right, we're zeroing it out. Yeah, so with this yarn, it's only 2.3 ounces, which is 2.3. Okay, so I cannot make another one with this because I only have 2.3. So I only have like 1.2 left. And I don't know if I have any more yarn like this kind of yarn. So it's like I can mix it with like another gray, but it's not the same type of yarn. So I don't know if I have any more of this. So I won't be able to use that one for a bunny. So that's kind of like why I used a scale too, because it would have been bad. I mean, looking at it, I might be like, oh yeah, that's enough. But no, it wouldn't have made a full bunny, and then I might not have yarn to match that. Well, I know I definitely don't have that color. So I'm just going to put it in the baggie because I'm going to work on these later. We're going to assemble them. So all we're doing right now is we're making the fabric, basically, the knit fabric, so that then we can assemble it into a bunny. And then I'm going to come back with different colors, and we are going to go ahead and crank out another one. All right, y'all. So I picked out some colors. We're going to go with this color for the body, and then a small portion of the ear and the arms. And then I'm going to mix that color with, with this color. And so I think that makes a good combination. It's a light purple and a dark purple. So I think instead of starting with the body this time, I probably should start with the body because I'm going to get out of order and I'm going to wind up messing up. But I thought I'd start with the arms. That way we can go ahead and get the waist joint out of the way. I'm just looking, making sure there's enough of a contrast there. And there is. I would use the white, but I'm afraid I would use this one, but I'm afraid I'm going to try it again. I know, guys, I know. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to try it again. Because it's definitely contrast. Again, we're casting on. I make sure it was in front of that first needle, the back, the front, the back, the front, and we're going to go all the way around. It's contrasting, and if I can get it to work, I'd rather use this yarn than my good yarn. The back of the last needle into the yarn guide. You see it popped up, so I want to make sure it goes down, and I want to make sure it doesn't split in the process. So there we go. And I'm going to oh my goodness, we did this again. All right, I'm going to turn that book around. And the reason I have these books here, in case you're wondering, is because sometimes I use the drill to help me, but this adapter is for the Centro, and so it works a lot better with the Centro. It doesn't work quite as good with the Addi, so I used it earlier for just a little bit, and I just found it easier to do with my hands. All right, so there's that. Where's my needle? I lost my needle. There it is. All right, so we've got our waist drum. We're going to go ahead and do I'm going to help the machine just a little bit. Pull the first one back down. Right here, it's split. Yeah, it's splitting again. It may not work. I just needed to do a few rows. Oh, look at that, it's working. So we're going to go ahead and just do a few rows. I'm going to take it nice and slow. Get some slack in my yarn. All right, I'm going to stop it there. Remember, this is just waist yarn, so I don't need it to be very long, just long enough to tie off. Last needle. And then this is the waist yarn end, so this is the end that's going to go the top part of my arm, which is the part that's going to get sewn onto the body. So I want that part to be in this dark purple. So I'm going to go ahead and put this through my yarn guide. Make sure it's in front of that needle. I'm going to hold these together. I'm going to set my counter. And for the arm, we're doing 20, but with this dark purple, I am going to do 5. And 5. Yeah, I'm going to do 5 and then 15 in the lighter color. I'm going to hold that. So it seems like a lot to go through just for 5 little rounds, but it'll make it look nice. And so I'm just helping the first 2 needles out. Help out any other needles that need help along the way. We're on row 3, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this. Get some slack in my yarn. I don't need very much because I only got 2 more rows to go. So we're working on 3. We're working on 4. We're working on 5. Last needle. This is only going to be a color change. So again, I don't need it to be very long. Last needle. Put it there. Now we're going to go to the light one. If I wanted to do a jogless color change means that you can't see the color change. I'm going to go ahead and show you anyway. I was going to say I don't need it for the arm because we're going to fold the arms in half and then mattress stitch along the side. So the color change could be on the inside and you wouldn't be able to see it. But it's not like it's hard to do. So, right, normally we end here and then we start with the first needle. Well, to do a jogless color change, we are going to come right, this is the end of our last yarn. We're going to go right back into that last needle. And then we're going to go through the yarn guide. We're going to close it. We're going to hold it. So both the old yarn and the new yarn are under the last needle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to set my counter because I just have to go to 20. And so I do a few, make sure they're under this little partition here. And then I'm going to pull my new color. You can see how there's slack in there. I'm going to just pull it till I get all the slack. I'm going to do a couple rows and then I'll go ahead and tie those. I'm still in front of the needle. I want to make sure nothing changes. And we're going to do 15 in this color. And so that was a couple of rows. And so I take these 2. And now these 2 are going to, this knot is going to stay here, right? Because these 2. But if I just do a double knot now without actually, once I take it off of the machine, looking at it, when I'm making the knot, I have to look and pull just right so that it can be perfect and you not see the color change. So for right now, I'm just putting 1 knot because I'll mess with that knot when I'm getting ready to assemble. Last one. And then The purple one, that was where we were going to sew, and I should have left a much longer end than what I did. So I will on the next one. Because on this end, this is the end that's just going to be the hand, so I don't need the extra yarn on there. So I'll just go up to my elbow this time because I need enough yarn to be able to cast off. But I won't be doing any sewing with this end. I should have left it on that end. But that's okay because you see how little, you know, just how short that is. When I sew it, it'll be a little bit longer. Um, yeah, actually it should have been longer because I'm going to have to actually close that end up as well. But that's fine because we can add another strand of yarn and work with that. So that's not a problem. It's just an extra little step. And okay, make sure the last needle catches yarn or needle. And then what are we going to do, guys? Cast off. That's right. And we do what? The first 2 or 3 we do individual. And then the rest of them we can pick up multiple. And why don't I turn the whole round? Because I don't like dropping stitches, and I've done it before and I've dropped stitches. If you're brave and you like to take risk like that, by all means, go right on ahead. I don't like it, so I just rather do it this way. All right, so that's one arm done. And I'm going to show you. So this is where we did the jogless, and you can see where you can see the difference, right? I'm trying to make sure I'm in the camera. So you can see where it's light and then dark, or dark and then light. But when we pull the yarn, this is our knot, right? So I'm going to pull just a little tighter, and you can still see it. I'm trying to like make sure that you see and that I'm grabbing the right strands. All right, I got blue, I got purple. So you can still see the difference. But look at that now. And so now that we've done that, I'll go ahead and make my second knot. So you just get it to where it looks perfect and you can't see the color change. And like I said, this won't matter because we're going to fold it in half. But if this was going to be on a part of the project that was showing, yeah, you definitely, well, I mean, you may not want to, but I don't like to have the color change, so I do the jogless. And then we go on to our second arm. So we go back to, we're going to do the white again. And you got it. We're going to cast on front, back, front, back, front, back. Last needle, we're behind it, into the yarn guide. Make sure the first one is down. We're going to do a few rounds with this. Hopefully the machine doesn't need a lot of help. Oh, that one split. Like I said, I don't know if all the small Addies do this, but because I only have this Addi, so I don't know. Like, I don't mind doing it the first couple of rows, but when I get to going, I don't like when it does it in the middle. Like, this yarn is just stripped like crazy. I don't know if you guys can, if the camera is actually capturing that. You see that? I don't think that's going to work. You saw it work just fine with the last arm, right? It's like, why? Alright, this is the one that's all messed up. I'm going to keep an eye on this one right here. Yeah, that yarn is... Alright, let's hope for the best. Alright, you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that right there is a drop stitch. You see right here, there's no yarn. See how the yarn is in front of all these? That's dropped. So I was able to get the one that fell off and put it right back on. But a lot of times it's not like that. You don't realize it to the very end. And now I have a tuck stitch. And I'm just making sure because I don't want my waist yarn to come apart. So I'm just pulling, making sure. And yeah, dropped. So what that means is that all this could come apart. And is it worth saving with just waist yarn? In my opinion, no. In my opinion, should I throw this yarn away? Yes. Am I going to try? No, I'm not going to try it again. I'm not going to waste your time. So front, back, front, back, front, back, front. Last one, I'm behind it. Yarn guide, make sure my first one is down. I'm going to go ahead and do a few rounds with this, which is my waist yarn. Put the first needle back down, the yarn on it. Last one. I don't need a lot. I'm going to start, what were we starting with? We're starting with the dark. And we're doing, all right, on this end, we're going to leave enough room to sew. So I'm going to go again from the fingertips to the shoulder. Go in there. Go on this one. Set my counter. Then we're doing 5. And we want to go just take it a little slow. Make sure everything's catching. And I'm going to come back and tie those in a couple of rows. So first needle, see, it's up. I'm going to go ahead and tie these. All right, last needle. 5 rows go by really quick. I don't need it to be long because we're just going to tie. Put that one to the side. Put this one into the last one. Make sure it catches. We're going to take this one to do the jogless. We're going to go ahead in the back needle. If you don't care, you could just do it in the front needle. I'm going to go ahead and do this one in the front one just so that you can see. So I'm going to hold these. I'm going to go a few stitches. I'm going to push these under there. Then I'm going to pull on this yarn just to get the slack out. I'm going to crochet. I'm going to crochet. I'm going to knit a few more and then I'll tie those. And that's my color change, so I could technically just go ahead and do it all the way, but I'm going to show you the difference. Right, that's 20. That was quick. And on this end, I just need enough to cast off. Last needle, make sure it catches. And we cast off again. That's where I came out of. I'm going to the next one, which is the first needle. And I'm doing these individually just because, no reason actually. And there's our second arm. All right. And so we find the color change, right? It doesn't look horrible. But when you take these two, and you pull them, you can get it kind of even. But if you see right here, that stitch has gone in and this one is pulled. And so it just, the full stitch is not there. That's because that extra yarn from that extra needle is not there. So, I mean, in this case, it doesn't matter because, like I said, we're folding it in. So, but I just wanted to show you that putting it on that last needle does help you to get it just right. All right, so ears. We're going to do the same thing with the ears. We're going to start with the dark. And for the ears, we're doing 10 in the dark and 25 in the light. I'm going to get this one out of the way. And back to the first needle. And the dark purple is the one that I'm going to sew with. So I'm just going to leave it long. Again, I did from fingers to shoulder. That might be too long because I probably don't need that much. I know I don't need that much. See, guys? That's what happens when you get tired. You start making mistakes. I got to cast on. So in front of the first needle, but I still leave that down there. The back, the front, the back, the front. Last needle and behind. Yarn guide. First needle, it's up. I want to make sure it's down there. Set my counter. Help my machine along the way. It's being good though. Did you see that? It did almost a whole row. Pull this one back down. Oh, I think it did good. What did I say we're going to do with this one? 10. But the first couple of rows, I want to go ahead and go slow anyway. See that one? It caught right there. Last needle. Our color change. So we don't need a lot. Make sure it catches. Our new yarn color change. 25. So I'm going to put it through the yarn feeder. Go around the last needle. I'm going to hold these together. Caught the first. I'm going to go ahead and grab the new yarn and put it on the, push it under there. Just give it a nice little tug. Do a couple of rounds and I'll tie that. And because I'm really not worried about color change because it's going to be folded in, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a second knot as well. That way it's done. Last one. On this end, I just need enough to cast off. that's the ear. And that's where my color change was, but I pulled it, and so I wasn't really like paying attention, but even at that, it looks pretty good. Alright, so another ear. Dark purple. We have this ear to go, and then the body. So again, we're casting on front and back. So we are almost done. Well, I say almost, I mean back, last needle on behind it. Close that up. First, make sure that thread is all the way down. Set my row counter. And I said, what, 10 of these? Of course, the first couple of rounds, we're going to go nice and slow. We're going to help the machine out. I say we'd be helping the yarn out, but it does it with all yarn, so it's definitely not the yarn. Although there are yarns that it does not like at all. I was trying to do a bunny in this color because I thought that'd be pretty cute. You know, a camouflage bunny. The machine does not like it at all. This is camo in Red Heart, and it's pretty coarse, pretty rough. The machine does not like it at all. It would not do anything with it. So there is some yarns that it's just like, nope, I'm not doing it. And I just messed that all up. I just messed that up. It happens. It happens. All right, so we've cast it on again. And like I said, we're going to have the machine. And sometimes to fix a mistake, a little mistake, takes longer than what it just does to what I just did, which was restart. That took me probably less than a minute. If I would have tried to mess with fixing yarn, it would have just taken longer. Pull my first one down, or yeah, first yarn down. Held this one. And you see, sometimes it needs more help than others. And so we want 10 of these. All right, this is 10. Last needle. I'm so sorry. Again, I do just a few. Push it under the partition. I grab this end and then this end. And I just give it a small tug, and you can see it pick up the slack, just so that I don't have loose stitches. I'll go a couple of rounds and then I'll tie that off. And because I don't care about the color or anything right now, I'm just gonna, because it's gonna be on the inside, I'm just gonna double knot it. Okay, we're at the last round. Tape, last needle. I don't need a lot on this one, just enough to cast off. Make sure it catches the last needle, not the first, just the last. So guys, I hope that by the time you get to the end of this video, you will definitely know how to cast on, cast off, do a color change, and crank out rows. Do a jogless color change as well. Well, maybe that one you don't have perfected. We haven't done that one very much. And remember, when you start casting off, to count, just so that you make sure you have, this is a 22 needle, so I have to make sure I count up to 22. If I was working on the central, it's a 48, so I would have to count to the 48. You may have a 40, you may have, I think there's 42, so they're different. All right, so there is our other ear. Oh, you know what? The ears won't get folded over. The ears will just be floppy, but this part will be like this, and then this part kind of gets tucked in. It'll be like, we'll flatten this. So like this will get all cinched in. I'll show you real quick before we make the body. So like this part will be all cinched in, and I'll have to go around with the yarn and reinforce the circle. That's just something I do to make sure it doesn't come apart. And then this part, I'm not cinching in all the way, just enough till it's flat. Well, it kind of is all the way, but not like that. So like this, and then I will make a knot right there, and then I will sew this onto the bunny's head like this. And so that little color change will be on the inside anyway. But I forgot, I was thinking I was doing this because that's what I'm doing with the arms, but I'm not. And so I could leave it like that, but normally I try to put like a couple stitches there just to give it that little like tip, the ear tip. But each one is individual, and so I just go with what I feel at the moment. I mean, as far as the rows, they're the same. But when I'm working on a bunny, I just do each one, whatever I'm feeling at that time. All right, so we have the two arms, we have the two ears, and now all we need is the body. And the body's going to be all in the dark purple. So all we're doing with this is we're going to go ahead, our first needle, touch the surface, we're going to cast on, which is in front, behind, all the way around. If you're coming in at the end of this, I've gone over that part like, I don't know, 4 or 5, like 8, 9 times, 10 times. So you could probably just go back on a replay and watch it. I also have a video on my channel on how to cast on and cast off if you need to watch it slower, or if, whatever you want. So I've cast it on. I'm going to set it to 0. And yeah, I almost forgot. I got to do 10 of these and then 25 for some reason. Oh no, we're done with the ears. We're doing all body. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're doing all body. Let me put that yarn away so I don't mess up. I could use the lighter yarn. I could put like a little stripe or something in the body, but that's not what I want to do. I want to make the body all this color. So we are going to help the machine along on these first couple of rows. Because that's what we do. We want the machine to be happy so that it will function and do what we want it to do. Pull down my first yarn on the first needle. Help it carefully so that I don't pop this out. I really wish my machine would just let me just crank out the rows as soon as I put it, and I wouldn't have to do this, but I've had to do it since day one. So I just don't think that that's going to happen. But that's more of what I'm used to normally. I cast on and it does it 1 or 2 rows, and then we're good to go from there. So what I don't like, well, I mean, I don't like that part either, but what I really don't like is when it does it, when we're like 2 rows in, that becomes a problem. It doesn't do that very often. I'm sorry, I'm talking. I forgot I'm cranking and I'm talking. You can't hear me probably. For any of you that just came in, I also, this end of the yarn, I hold like this. I run it through the fingers like that, just to put a tiny bit of tension on there, and also to make sure if there's any knots or any tangles or anything like that, that it hits my hand before it hits the machine. And then you want to make sure that your yarn has slack, your yarn ball. You don't want your machine having to struggle to get yarn. You saw how much yarn I let out, and that's it. It was gone. And I'm not going to assemble the bunnies with you right now, but I am going to do a live assembling the bunnies. So since you've learned how to crank out all the tubes, if you want to crank out the tubes and then tune in to me live so that we can assemble the bunnies together, you can do that. You can ask questions. Also, if you just want to do it on your own, once you crank out all the tubes, I also have, I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, a how-to tutorial on making the bunny that we're going to make. And I guess let me grab one and show you because you don't even know what we're making. All the tubes that we've done is to make this bunny right here. So these ears I did differently. I was experimenting, trying something different. This is the bunny that we're making. So there is a tutorial on how to do this bunny, not with these ears, with the two separate ears like we've been cranking out. Like I said, that was just an experiment. But yeah, so there is a tutorial on how to do it if you want to do that, following along the tutorial, or you're more than welcome to come to the live and we can do it together. All right, now I'm already at 64 rows. Normally at like 60, I try to pull my bottom end up because it starts hitting the bottom and it could cause my stitches to pop out. And I don't want my stitches to pop out. So I'm just pulling my bottom. Now it's clear and I should be able to crank out the rest of the rows. More yarn. We're getting close to the end. And if you're wondering if my arm is tired, it is, because this is the sixth bunny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, the sixth one. So that's what each one is: 2, 4, 5 tubes, different lengths. So yes, my arm is tired. Last round. My last needle's coming up. Last needle. And then what am I doing? The body, cinching, stitching, doing the legs. I need enough yarn to be able to do this part right here. So again, probably I'm going to do to the shoulders, probably not necessary. Make sure the last needle catches. And we're going to cast off. So even like if I try to go to the other, like number 2 or number 3, it just pulls. There's just too much tension. So if you try to do it, it probably reminds you. And if you're wondering why I take my time when I'm casting off, it's because this happened to me more than once that I get in a rush and I drop my stitches. And sometimes, yeah, I can fix them, but that takes longer than to just take my time here. Or sometimes I drop this. I'm going so fast, I drop the stitch. I don't realize it until my project is just where it would just be more effort to fix than to start over. So I just take my time. And so that's our body, which is basically, our head and our legs. And so I stretch it out long ways and I stretch it out like this. And so that's it. You guys just cranked out. We're going to put it in the bag. You guys just cranked out 2 bunnies with me. We did this one. We did this one. We did that one. We did that one. And I can't remember if y'all did some of those with me. Probably not. So definitely 2. And so I think this is all I'm cranking out for today. I will probably assemble some of these. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and assemble some of these live. And I'm also going to assemble some of them so that I can get started. And then I'll probably be making some more. But thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you've had fun. I hope you have learned something. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, thank you. I hope y'all have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Bye. Bye.